2025. Joining today's presser is Mr. Aubrey C. Norton, Member of Parliament, leader of the People's National Congress Reform and the Partnership for National Unity. Today's press statement will be read by the leader.
Good day. The APNU coalition government will pursue near full employment of Guyanese within our first term in office. Although Guyana has seen exceptional GDP growth rates in recent years, mostly attributed to the oil sector and a rapid increase in GDP per capita, well above the global average, there is a disconnect between economic growth and development in our country. The World Bank in 2024, for example, estimated youth employment to be 22.3%. If we include the adult unemployment rate, a very large number of Guyanese remain unemployed. The underemployment of Guyanese is also significantly high, as persons hold on to jobs for which they are overqualified or work irregularly or only as part-time workers. What the foregoing tells us is that the economic growth as measured by GDP is not fueling economic development and shared prosperity, as many Guyanese are still not earning enough or at all. Many Guyanese continue to live in poverty. Some have contended that jobs are available for all Guyanese, but just a few months ago, we debunked this contention by pointing out that persons cannot fill vacancies because A, they are unskilled and feel marginalized. B, their skills do not match the available and accessible jobs. C, no training in skilling, reskilling, and upskilling is available, affordable, or accessible. D, there is gender, racial, and age discrimination in employment practices. E, there is involuntary unemployment because of family circumstances. F, information about vacancies is not widely and systematically disseminated. And G, the prohibitive transportation and accommodation costs are barriers that prevent many indigenous people from participating in the formal labor force. Our country, therefore, needs to end the PPP's haphazard approach to national development and create and implement a job creation policy to employ all Guyanese who are able and willing to work. As the next government, the APNU coalition job creation policy will undertake the following. One, attain almost full employment by the end of our first term in office. This means we will create full-time jobs for over 40,000 unemployed Guyanese, in addition to the more than 15,000 now employed as part-time workers. Two, award thousands of small contracts each year, not only for the building of village streets, but also for home construction, community sanitation, and beautification projects, and infrastructure and facilities maintenance. Three, award large contracts for infrastructure projects to meet clear national development goals, such as coast to hinterland highways, interregional highways, connecting Linden and New Amsterdam, for example, drainage and irrigation, social services, and community development. We will ensure that foreign contractors employ a high percentage of Guyanese workers. Four, increase the human resources of the public service to fill shortages in areas such as the provision of education and training, healthcare, childcare, and elderly care. Five, expand the private sector by reducing the cost of doing business in Guyana, including reducing business taxes and establishing a development and investment bank to provide easy access to credit. Six, boost micro and small business development by more than doubling grants and soft loans. 7, provide affordable and accessible training opportunities to citizens for skilling, reskilling, and upskilling. 8, work with the University of Ghana and revamp the Gold Scholarship Program to run development driven programs and produce job ready graduates. 9, reduce the tax burden on the self employed so that they can invest in business expansion. And 10, strengthen local content legislation and enforcement. We believe that Guyanese must not only have jobs, but have jobs that are well paid, that match their skills, talents, and propensities and qualifications, are respectable and uplifting, and that allow them the time and opportunity to give of their best and to enjoy their lives to the fullest. This is the vision of the APNU coalition. We ask for your support to implement it. Rose Hall vendors are dissatisfied with the management of Rose Hall Market by the PPP controlled town council. In a visit last Monday to Rose Hall, we were informed by residents that they are very dissatisfied with the performance of the PPP controlled town council. But more particularly, the market vendors are up in arms against the Rose Hall Town Council for failing to clean the market. The vendors contend that they do a poor job of cleaning, that the entire market area is filthy, and that on tables, etc., where things like fruits should be, they are not properly kept, and there are a lot of flies and worms around. They have expressed the view that because of the inability or the unwillingness of the town council to do their job, they are placing the health of the people at Rose Hall at risk. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, I'll open the floor for questions on the press statement. All right, you can go ahead and ask any question that you have at this time.
Good morning.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning, Trina Williams, Ghana Chronicle. Mr. Martin, over the weekend we would have seen political heavyweight figure resigning from the PNC. This is just his resignation adds to a long list of high-profile members resigning. How can Apnu credibly claim to offer national leadership when some of its most senior figures now openly support the very government that the party seeks to replace?
Oh, so you are suggesting that Figueroa is supporting the PPP. I didn't hear him say that, but that you would have said that. Let me deal with the issue.
No, Mr. Martin. Let's look at Gita Chandan, Mr. Siwa, Mr. Sandy. I'm just saying that
Okay.
Figueroa adds to the long list.
Well,
I'm not saying that
in the
Figueroa
first
endorses the
in the
PPP.
first place,
He also put that a man's elect. So I'm just asking.
in the first
that-
place, none of them are heavyweights. Heavyweights are determined by our party based on one, the work you do, and not solely the position you hold. I invite you to go through the performance of Figueroa and see what in it suggests to you that he was a heavyweight performing incredibly for the APNU. In fact, youth sport and culture only became a focus after I removed Figueroa and placed Nima Flubes, and she is a heavyweight. In my opinion, Figueroa was the occupier of a seat, not a heavyweight. A heavyweight gets into the community, relate to people, do what has to be done. There are many other things, but I don't want to get into them, but to say to you, so far, none of the persons who would have departed have can carry with them the support from the APNU. We continue to be strong, and the elections results will show that we were a party on the ground. And though you were not seeing the likes of Figueroa on the ground, the hard-working party members were there, they continue to be there, and we will do the work to achieve their objectives. We are well aware that the PPP is desperate and they're picking up anything or anybody, but that's not our problem. That is theirs.
Okay, a quick follow-up there, Will. I know that every time you're questioned about these resignations, regardless of who these persons are, there are not low-level members. They were in the room where key decisions were made. Isn't this telling on the party's credibility and stability that these high-level members are departing? And ahead of Sunday's campaign launch, can you tell us what we can expect?
Now, in terms of the campaign launch, I wouldn't say to you what you will expect. I know you will have your people there, they will hear what will happen. May I say this to you? None of the persons that have resigned were members of the executive of the PNC, except Figueroa, who was not attending executive meetings and involved in decision making. Daniel Siram wasn't, Sandy wasn't, Geeta Chandan wasn't. So I don't know what makes them high heavyweights, because none of them were executive members of the People's National Congress Reform when they resigned, except Figueroa, who I said was not attended. He attended one meeting of the Central Executive after the last time, and it was evident to us that he had no interest. And so we're unbothered by whatever action he takes. May I also point out to you that some of the persons you are talking about, they have court cases and possible charges hanging over their head, and so their vulnerability made them perpetuously disposed to go into the PPP.
Thank you. I see the hand of Miss Rena.
Good morning, everybody. Renee Samovich with Editor News. Mr. Norton, you mentioned strengthening local content legislation and enforcement. Can you clarify what specific changes or new measures you're proposing to achieve?
We are going to outline those in our manifesto. We're going to outline those on the campaign trail. But just to say, there are many elements of local content that we think needs to be looked at. Let me give you an example. Sometimes we see people view local content as only the business must be owned by Guyanese, etc., but they pay no attention to products. If you are importing all the if your local businesses are importing all the products that they want, then you are not talking about total local content. Local content must also seek to ensure that a lot of the produce, etc., that are purchased by the oil and gas sector are Guyanese in nature. Because if you're observing what is happening, even though there is local content and things are being purchased, it is also increasing the import food bill. And that is an issue that we will have to address when it comes to local content. It just cannot be ownership. It has to be real local content in which a lot of the products purchased by the oil sector has to be some amount or a large percentage Guyanese products where possible.
Thank you. Miss Svetlana Marshall.
Mr. Norton, good day. Just to follow up on my colleague's question with regards to those who would have resigned. I know you said that those who would have resigned are not heavyweights. Mr. Figueroa served as the chairman of the PAC, and MP Amanda Walton this year, she was, I think, the shadow for foreign affairs and dealt extensively with that very important portfolio. What would you say to persons who may be looking on and say, well, if this is how it's going to speak about those who would have contributed to the party, why should I say stay? And I asked the question against the backdrop of Natasha Lewis, and I think Daniel Siram, sorry if I got the name incorrectly, who referenced to how the late Amna Ali was treated, which led to, I think, his or her resignation. So, yes, that's the question.
No,
It
first,
has to be
first,
with their contributions. And secondly, sir, with regards to MP Figuera, he's a leading member in Region 10. He has done a lot of charitable work. Don't you think that him leaving could, cause the party to lose votes?
I do not believe him leaving will cause the party to lose votes. And a lot of the charitable work you're talking about wasn't done on behalf of the PNC. I want to make that very clear. I did not mention Amanza as not being a heavyweight. In fact, I didn't mention heavyweight at all. It is a previous journalist that sought to suggest what constitutes a heavyweight. In my opinion, Amanza Walton, I've always said, has potential. She lacks the political experience, and therefore, I will not at any point suggest that anything derogatory about her. She's made her choice, and it's within her right. However, when it comes to the likes of German Figuera, the truth must be told. He has not been a leading person in Region 10 PNCR. More than 3 years ago, I can tell you this. I began this process of engaging with him to ensure work is done in Region 10. People in Region 10 will tell you I went to Linden at least 5 times to get him working and getting the party up and running. And when we were coming to the local government elections, we were in a situation where he felt we shouldn't run. And as leader of the party, that to me was unacceptable. So we went into Linden, put a campaign structure in place, and you know the results of the local government election. And so our position was straight and clear. Linden is our stronghold. Work must be done to maintain it. And anyone who isn't doing the political work that should be done had to go. And German fell into that category. Of course, German has the right to decide what to do, where he goes, etc. I asked a journalist when I removed him as shadow minister, youth, sport and culture. I asked the journalist, did you know he was shadow minister, sport and culture? And the answer was no, because he did nothing or little or nothing as shadow minister culture. I am not here into personalities. I am here dealing with people who would have done the work. We came out of government in 2020, and we had to work assiduously to rebuild our party base and do the things that were necessary. And all the decisions that were taken in the interest of rebuilding the party. We have done that. We have a larger membership. We are more focused. And so I am not saying to you, German doesn't have the right to go. What I'm saying, we don't consider him a heavyweight because the work that was required as a party in Region 10 wasn't being done. And as leader, I had to make the decision. And I made the decision to remove him in Region 10 and to move him from Shadow Minister, Youth, Sport and Culture. We had Minister Ramson, who was doing nonsense, sometimes doing nothing, and there was silence on the issue. It is for that reason I moved German Figuera, put Nima Flu-Best, and I don't think anyone will doubt that Nima Flu-Best, as Shadow Minister, Sport and Culture, took on Ramson. In fact, the speaker had to save Ramson in the last questioning in Parliament. So I don't know what constitutes a heavyweight for you, but for me, it was just another feather. Now, As it relates to Daniel Siram, I've made it very clear. Since I am leader of the party, Daniel Siram has never worked in the interest of the People's National Congress reform. Unfortunately, there's no recall legislation at the level of the RDC, so he could not have been removed. But were there recall legislation, Daniel Siram would not have lasted a year because he was not doing anything in the interest of the People's National Congress reform. I don't have anything against Daniel personally, but the persons I would have removed were persons who I believe were not performing in the way that they should. Let us recall, I came and I met shadow ministers and I worked with them, and then I rearranged some because we had a situation where someone was a former minister, but he wasn't shadowing the ministry that he was minister in the case of Patterson, and we rearranged it so he could shadow infrastructure, and you saw the pressure that Edgel was under while he became shadow minister. The same is true with Kemraj in Home Affairs. So there were certain things that I had to rectify, and I rectified them. I believe leadership is not looking for popularity. It's taking the decisions that will allow people to develop, the organization to develop, and the organization achieve its objective. And I do think some of them who would have left did us a good job because they were there purporting to be with us when they weren't doing what they were expected to do as chairman, vice chairman, and member of parliament.
Mr. Norton, just a follow-up. What would you say to those who are of the opinion that as a leader you fail to take accountability? Persons, like I said in the last press conference and in the resignations that they were sidelined. I guess Mr. Figueroa said too, he was sidelined. Amanda said she was sidelined. That you are not perfect and that you may have failed to take accountability.
Okay, let's deal with sidelining. I don't know that Figueroa could claim to be sidelined. Figueroa was not doing the work, and he was removed both as chairman of the region and as shadow minister, youth, sport, and culture. And this had to do with competence, I don't know, or lack of it. I don't know that it had anything to do with being sidelined. I've already explained that Natasha Singh Lewis said in real terms that she could not work with me as leader because our friend Amna Ali said if she worked with me, the friendship is over. She opted for the friendship. I can't do anything about that. As it relates to, I don't know that Daniel Siram and the vice chairman can claim anything about sidelining because they weren't operating at that level in the party in recent times. As it relates to Amanda Walton, it is true that at a particular point, she was not on our press conferences, etc. And it is for a reason which I think is justifiable, but I do not want to be in the public domain saying what it is unless she says something contrary.
Thank you.
Mr. Dennis
Shabral, Mr. Shabral, 1 second, please. As you know, yes, but as you know, there is a line up for questioning, and I'm sure that you can see online here that there are at least 3 other persons who have been waiting for more than 10 minutes. So just 1 second. Mr. Antonio Day.
Good morning, everyone. Mr. Norton, can you hear me?
Yes, I'm hearing you clear.
Yes, sir. I'm aware that the legalized cannabis party, if I'm correct, they are part of the Apnu coalition. I would like to know, given that their mantra is to see the legalization of cannabis, is this among the new policies if the Apnu is elected to government? And secondly, given that Ms. Nima Flubest is a shadow minister and she has been active in the sector, is it foreseeable that she will be among the new list of candidates of your party, if you're willing to disclose? Thank you.
Yes, Nima will be on our list of candidates. Like I've said before, we are going to choose our list based on performance, commitment, and professional ability. And I think Nima qualifies in every regard. As it relates to legalize cannabis party, we have no agreement with them or any uh, commitment to them to legalize marijuana. We have said that they represent the Rastafarian movement, at least some sections, and we believe Rastafarians are part of this society, and we believe that they should have a seat at the table and be engaged. But we have made no commitment whatsoever. With the government passing legislation to have a hemp industry. They have shown an interest in operating in the hemp industry, and we have no problem with that, and will embrace them. We have with us Kingdom Liberation Movement, which is a Christian body, and they're comfortable. In one meeting, we made it clear that there is no promise whatsoever to legalize marijuana. We didn't choose the name of their group. They are free to choose the name of the group. And even in government, let's assume when we get into government, they will have the right to lobby Guyanese across the board if they so desire. But there has been no commitment to legalize marijuana just by the mere presence of the legalized cannabis party in our coalition.
Sorry if I may, would this something that if you guys are elected to government, given that we have the hemp industry, is this something that you will want to legalize, given that it can be used for medicinal purposes?
Well, I think that's a narrow view of hemp. And when you look at it, remember the government has already passed legislation for hemp to be a business venture.
I'm talking with marijuana, sir.
No, but the issue, I've already answered that question of legalizing marijuana. We have no agreement to legalize marijuana. We've engaged the Rastafarian committee, both through that body and through other bodies. Now, in one of the discussions I have had with some of the persons, I said to them that this is not a straightforward issue. It will have to be something that is undertaken by the wider society. They will have to share their view. I also made the point that, as I understand it, there are two categories of marijuana, one that is addictive and one that is medicinal, and issues like that will have to be addressed. So I would say to you, we have an open mind, but our engagement is more an attempt to bring the Rastafarians into the political system so that they can represent themselves rather than people having to represent them.
Thank you. Miss Williams?
Mr. Martin, can you say why the party hasn't directly addressed Sandy's claim that the APNU knew it lost in 2020 elections but refused to concede?
Well, I don't know that Sandy was involved at the level in the 2020 elections to make any pronouncement. Sandy comes over to me as a man who is singing for his supper.
Thank you.
A follow-up there, is the APNU prepared to release any documents to clear the air on these claims?
Release any document to what?
Clear the air on these claims that Sandy made.
The recount showed clearly what happened. It is not the APNU that had 41 boxes without
Statutory document.
the statutory document. It is not the APNU that decided they will count the documents regardless of what the recount showed. So we don't have to release anything. We file a court action in which all the facts are there. All you have to do, they are public documents. Go peruse them and you will get your answer.
Thank you. Miss Renee. Kite News. All right, I don't know. She's having a problem unmuting. And I'm assuming that the name admin is Mr. Shabral.
All right. Thank you for letting me know that. But I don't know what's going on with my computer. Mr. Norton, given the fact that you have recalled powers in the National Assembly, why didn't you recall a number of these parliamentarians that refused to work with you or did not do sufficient work, etc.?
Well, you say I have recall power. First of all, the recall power lies in the representative of the list, who's Mr. David Granger, the former president. That's the first point that needs to be made. From my own standpoint, I did not seek to recall them because it is not like they could have affected us apart from making the pronouncement which the PPP asked them to make. And I believe the parliament was coming to an end. And they wanted me to recall them so that they could run around and say Norton was vindictive. Parliament was towards the end, and you sought to remove them. You know, you do it, you damn if you do, you damn if you don't. I chose not to because I have an understanding of politics, and I know whatever you do, people will seek to spin it to achieve their objectives. It's in that context, therefore, I took a conscious decision that they could not affect the party, its support base, etc. Let them enjoy their salaries, but they were doing nothing anyhow.
Thank you. I don't know if Kaiser News has got their
You
mic
imagine if I had recalled Gita Chandan. You imagine if I recalled Gita Chandan, if I had recalled Natasha Singh. Oh, they would have had a field day. Now that I didn't recall them, they want to know why. Because it isn't worth it.
Thank you.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, Miss Williams.
Good morning, Mr. Norton. So recently we've had some issues in relation to the shortages of the US dollar in the market. Can you say what are some solutions you think would be applicable to address this scarcity?
Well, I think it has to be addressed in a comprehensive way. We already spoke about the food bill and how much it causes us to import. And we believe that with our approach to agriculture, there is going to be a reduction in that. We also believe that you have to generate more activity in the non-oil sector so that the non-oil sector become a earner. Let us not forget that a lot of the resources that come from oil and gas will go back to covering the investment costs, among others. And so it is not a case as if it is flowing into the Ghanaian economy. And that is one of the reasons that I would have said regularly, in the minute we come into government, I will engage ExxonMobil to ensure that Guyanese can benefit more from what exists.
Thank you.
Permit me a quick follow-up, sir. So yesterday, a similar question was asked to the Vice President, and his justification is that some persons are basically buying the currency and keeping it. He referred to them as hoarders, and he also said the government is keeping a close eye on Chinese businesses, and he also mentioned the Trinidadians. Do you agree that the way in which these persons are allegedly purchasing this currency is having an effect on the availability of that currency within the market?
It clearly does, but don't forget Jacques Deu himself, when Granger came to power in 2015, told them not to spend, keep it, hoard it. So it's a culture that has developed. I believe in terms of the Chinese and the Trinidadians, in government, we will look at the details and act. We believe all foreign investors must operate based on the rules, and we will ensure that there are rules to help us to ensure that the reduction of smuggling. Let us not forget, though Jack Doe is going on, like if he just drop into Guyana, this was a man who was a friend of Muhammad when all the allegations were being made against him. I'm not saying Muhammad did it or not. That's not my case. My case is here is a man who is talking now, but he had the information, he knew of it, and only because of pressure from the international community, he is now going on as if he didn't know, and this hoarding and so is a new phenomenon. He has been part of that, what I can call criminal cabal, that has been affecting Guyana by virtue of alleged practices which should not be condoned by senior politicians, but is condoned and sometimes allegedly involved Jack Dew himself.
Thank you. Mr. Antonio Day.
Mr. Norton, given that Mr. Ubergenarine has been I would say, a former supporter of the PNCR, and he's also would have said that he has supported you in whatever way, would he be one of those persons on the list of candidacy?
He's already on the list. And when it is officially announced, you will see Ubergenarine name there.
Thank you. All right. At this time, the floor is still open for at least one more question.
If I may,
Go ahead, Ms. Williams.
Mr. Norton, you just spoke about Mr. Ubraj being on the list. Could you say if he was ever considered to be the party's prime ministerial candidate?
That's our business. Why would I get involved in that? We have always taken a position that we were going to be coalition, and the person who was going to be prime ministerial candidate will come from another political party or another political group, and we have maintained that principle. So in the circumstance, I do not know that we had considered Ubergenarine, and all our party comrades understand that you're trying to create a big tent to contest the elections, and so they will have to make space. Ganesh Maipal is a suitable prime ministerial candidate, and I think Ganesh understands that we were building a broad coalition, and therefore there is a possibility that he will not be the prime ministerial candidate. There are many persons who would qualify to be the prime ministerial candidate, but once you're pursuing one coalition, two inclusiveness, there will always be persons who are eligible but who wouldn't become, because there is only one position called prime minister.
Thank you.
And since we're on the topic of prime ministerial candidate, how does the APNU justify selecting a prime ministerial candidate from the AFC, a party that said you lack national appeal?
Well, you are imputing things that I don't know of.
All right.
Unless it's just circumlocution, you need to be a little clearer.
Okay, thank you. I sent that was our last question. Let me just, all right. I want to thank our media personnel for joining today's press conference, and of course, to you, our viewing audience on all our social media platforms. And do remember that this weekend, Sunday, July 6th, the Partnership for National Unity Coalition will be launching its campaign at 4 o'clock at the Square Revolution, and we hope to see you there. Wear something green and come and support this movement as we prepare to take government after September 1st. Thank you. Do have a great weekend.